Africa is a home to over 1 billion dreams, breathtaking beauty, and unmatched resilience. But beneath the surface lies an untold story. Today, parts of this vibrant continent are caught in the grip of relentless conflict. Lives are being lost, families are being torn apart. Yet, the world remains silent. This is not just their fight, it's ours too. It's time to listen, to care, and to act. Without wasting much of your time, let's dive into today's story, and this really sad one in Mozambique.
Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, at least one person dies as police in Mozambique clash with crowds, some of whom have flocked to the international airport in Maputo to welcome back returning opposition leader Venancio Mondlane. Hundreds have died in crackdowns on protests that sprung up after October's elections. Also, Chad says that it's foiled a bid to storm the presidential palace. 2 soldiers are reportedly amongst 20 killed in Wednesday night's attack, but authorities insist that the incident poses little risk to the country's wider stability. And Egypt uncovers archaeological treasures from the reign of one of its very few women rulers. The discovery includes a sealed coffin and beautifully illustrated rock-cut tombs, more than 3,600 years old, found near the funerary temple of Queen Hatshepsut. But first, at least one person was killed on Thursday as police in Mozambique tried to break up crowds and stop people heading towards the international airport in the capital to support a returning opposition leader. Security forces blocked off roads, monitored the site by helicopter, and fired tear gas at some of those gathered to welcome Venancio Mondlane as he returned home from 2 months of self-exile. Now, he left Mozambique late last year after presidential elections that he said were fixed. Protests followed. Hundreds of people have died in the police crackdown. Mondlane says that he was compelled to come back to stand with his supporters. Laura Berstecker has more.
Holding a Bible and raising his palm as if taking an oath, Venancio Mondlane held a mock swearing-in upon his return to Mozambique.
I swear on my honor to serve the Mozambican homeland and its people. I swear on my honor to respect the Constitution and the laws. I say all this in my capacity as the elected president.
The returning opposition leader was welcomed by thousands of jubilant supporters as he landed in Maputo after nearly 3 months of absence. Blowing whistles and chanting his name, the crowd followed him to the city center, where Mondlane stood on top of his car and bathed in the glory of the moment. The opposition leader left the country in October following a controversial presidential election, which he claimed was rigged in favor of the ruling Frelimo party. From abroad, he urged his supporters to take to the streets, sparking a series of protests which were violently repressed by security forces. Around 300 people were killed in clashes with police, which Mondlane and others accused of using excessive force. Mozambican authorities meanwhile blamed the exiled opposition leader for fomenting and encouraging the unrest. Upon his return, Mondlane said he had nothing to hide and claimed he was willing to answer to the charges laid against him.
I've come here to show that I'm willing to submit myself to justice, to defend myself before justice, and to prove who the true criminals are.
In an attempt to tackle the crisis, the government began holding talks with the country's main opposition parties in November. Mondlane said he was willing to take part, but has so far not been invited to the negotiating table.
Now, Chadian authorities say that at least 20 people, including 2 soldiers, were killed when armed men tried to storm the presidential palace on Wednesday night. Now, local media has shared the following video. It is reportedly of the event as it happened, recorded on the CCTV at the site. Now, Eye on Africa has not yet independently verified the footage, but heavy gunfire did break out around the complex in the capital on Wednesday evening. The government since said that the attackers didn't get very far. Nevertheless, security around N'Djamina's roads were beefed up on Thursday. President Mohamed Idris Deby was inside the complex when the incident happened, and our correspondent tells us more.
Wednesday afternoon, Chad's Minister of Foreign Affairs invited ambassadors and media to a press conference in which he downplayed Wednesday night attack on the presidency. He said that was an insignificant incident. The government says that 24 armed men who they claim seemed drunk and drugged at the time drove to the compound, pretended to break down and then attacked 4 members of the presidential guard outside the gate. According to Kolamala, 18 were killed by soldiers as they took control of the situation.
Things are back to normal. I want to reassure you there is absolutely nothing to fear, absolutely no threats to our institutions. There is no reason for panic. If anything serious happened, we would have informed people individually, but there's nothing, absolutely nothing.
The attacker's motivation and identity are still unclear.
There have been similar cases in the past in Chad, but this didn't look like a typical attack on the presidential palace. Typical attacks, which we saw in the early 2000s, involved organized rebel groups which planned their operations.
6 surviving suspects are in hospital and are due to face charges. An investigation has been launched to look for others who may have been involved.
Harold there for us in N'Djamena. Now, a day on from having been in Chad himself, China's foreign ministers wrapped up his New Year's tour of Africa in Nigeria. Wang Yi was in Abuja on Thursday, where he met with Nigerian President Bola Tinubu and his counterpart, Foreign Minister Yusuf Tugar. Now, China is Africa's top business partner, and it's keen to keep trade flowing as it delivers strategic access to the continent's markets and minerals to Beijing. Trade between Nigeria and China alone was worth about 21.9 billion euros in 2023. On Thursday, Wang also pledged a hefty wedge of military aid to the continent.
China will help African countries train 6,000 military personnel and 1,000 police officers and law enforcement personnel. China will also continue to support the construction of Africa's standing armies and rapid forces.
Now, Ghana suspended all diplomatic ties with the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic this week. The move comes as the country's new president, John Mahama, took office amidst widespread Islamist insurgency threats across the Sahel. Our correspondent tells us more.
A statement released by Ghana's Foreign Affairs Ministry in Accra said that the country was now supporting Morocco's long-standing efforts aimed at finding a mutually beneficial resolution to the conflicts that have ravaged the area in the past. The Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic is a 250,000 square kilometer area along the northwestern coast of Africa. Mauritania, Algeria, and Morocco, the 3 countries that share borders with it, have been in conflict since 1976 when the country or the region gained its independence from Spain. The conflict have largely centered around who should have control of the area. The African sub-region is currently divided between the countries that recognizes it as an independent state, even though the African Union recognizes it as a country. Last July, France, for example, went against its decades-old position, now supporting Morocco in its bid to annex the region. Since Ghana's new position was announced, several analysts have been speaking, warning that this new position by the country that is just transitioning into a new administration could trigger some tension within the Sahel region.
Will this single gesture make it more prone to those who, the terrorists who don't like the Moroccan government, and then begin to come at us, or what is going to happen. So these are some of the things that are not so clear, if you ask me.
The Polisario Front, which claims to represent the people of the Western Sahara, insists that the area should be an autonomous region free from Moroccan control.
Justice Baidu there for us. Now, archaeologists are thrilled to have unveiled literal building blocks from the dynasty of the Egyptian queen Hatshepsut, dating back more than 3,600 years. More than 1,000 skillfully painted blocks of a foundation wall were found not far from her funeral temple. The monarch was one of very few women to have reigned over the country. Delana D'Souza tells us more.
A new discovery in the ancient Egyptian city of Luxor. Archaeologists have uncovered over 1,000 decorated stone blocks believed to be an intact part of the foundations for Queen Hatshepsut's Valley Temple.
This is the first time that we discovered 1,500 decorated blocks, the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in my life with the color. And this is the first time that we do have a final program of the decoration of a temple dated to the 18th dynasty.
Queen Hatshepsut died in 1458 BC and was one of 6 women who ruled ancient Egypt. Egyptian archaeologists and former Minister of Antiquities Zahi Hawass has been leading excavations at the site since 2022. Other major discoveries include tombs of high-ranking officials.
We found evidence that the name of Thutmose III in a cartouche has been used after the reign of Queen Hatshepsut. And this can show that Thutmose III restored this temple. A few years ago, I found out that Queen Hatshepsut died because of cancer. Means Thutmose III did not murder her.
The announcement of the latest discoveries come as Egyptian authorities ramp up efforts to revive the country's tourism sector, a key source of revenue in a struggling economy.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.